Today, we are traveling internationally on a new higher speed train service between Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and Brussels, Belgium. In an alternate timeline, this train would not exist. It's the final chapter in a very dramatic saga. But it may actually be better than what was originally supposed to run on this route. Why do I say that? Well, let's go for a ride on Eurocity Direct and find out. Our journey begins very early in the morning at Rotterdam Centraal Station in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. From here you can take a train to many different destinations in the Netherlands, as well as several international destinations. We are going to Paris via Brussels. First, let's grab some morning essentials. Good morning everybody, welcome to a brand new video. I'm Tom.
I'm Lindsay.
Today we are in the Netherlands, specifically in Rotterdam at Rotterdam Centraal Station, but we're headed to... That's right, we're going to Paris, but we're doing it in two legs. The first leg is the Eurocity Direct, a brand new train from here to Brussels. The thing is, there are direct high-speed trains from Rotterdam to Paris almost every hour. So why would we use two trains and transfer in Brussels? Well, the train from Rotterdam to Brussels is a new train that I have not been on yet, and I wanted to review it. And to compensate Lindsay for having to wake up a little bit earlier, I had a surprise for her. So we have a special kind of ticket. We need to find a section that says first class.
What is with all these first class tickets that you're getting?
For some context, this was filmed only a week after we had traveled on the Next Gen Acella's opening day, and I had also upgraded to first class for that trip. We're usually a coach/second class kind of family, so this was fun. Anyway, here comes our train. It is the Eurocity Direct service operated by Dutch Railways NS. This train type is the Intercity New Generation built by Alstom. The first ICNG trains entered service in April 2023, and they started running on the Amsterdam to Brussels route starting in December 2024. This train has two first-class compartments, both located near the middle of the train. You'll recognize them by the red seats. Now there are actually multiple types of ICNG, as illustrated in this clip I'm playing now. The front one has the more traditional NS livery of a yellow background with a blue stripe around the windows. These are exclusively for domestic services, while this train behind it, with more yellow and a giant NS logo, is a specially modified train set used for services to and from Belgium, which is good because this train should be taking us to Belgium. Interestingly, there are also 12 sets that are capable of running in the Netherlands and Germany, even though NS as of right now does not have any plans to run their own trains to Germany. First class is laid out in a 2x1 configuration, with very comfortable seats and decent legroom. The seats, of course, have power sockets, as well as luggage space above the seats. There's also additional baggage space for larger items. In the area by the doors, you'll find bins collecting trash and recycling. Now, one thing that's interesting to talk about is the mood lighting. So it doesn't actually have to do with what class you're in, but what kind of environment that space is supposed to be. So the orange lights are for meeting people, so it's where you can talk and chat. Blue lights are for working, so those come with larger tables. And then the purple lights mean quiet zone, so no talking allowed here. So this is my very first time on these Intercity New Generation trains, and I have to say, these seats are incredibly comfortable. This is going to be a nice ride to Brussels. We depart Rotterdam right on time at 6:41. Our journey to Brussels South Station will take less than 90 minutes. Along the way, we will make only one intermediate stop at Antwerpen Centraal Station in Antwerp. So this train is only going to stop in Antwerp and Brussels. It's really a remarkable conclusion to a very messy, dramatic history for this train. Finally, there's a fast train from the Netherlands to Belgium that's not super expensive to ride, but because it has so few stops, for us it has an advantage too. We're going to be the only ones in here till at least Antwerp. As dawn begins to break, we travel through the south of Rotterdam on conventional tracks, but once we leave the city, we switch over to the high-speed line, which lets us go our top speed of 200 kilometers per hour. The story of the Eurocity Direct cannot be told without telling the story of the high-speed line. It's taken years and several mistakes to get where we are today. There has been train service between the Netherlands and Belgium since the 1850s, but right before World War II, the two countries got serious about electrifying the line and running a high-quality train service. Well, that got delayed, but finally in 1957, they introduced the Benelux train. Now, the Benelux is basically a name for Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Benelux trains never actually ran to Luxembourg, but that's just the name they got. Over the years, this service used very interesting rolling stock, from the old Hondenkoppen to the Netherlands' first cab cars to the ICR cars in that beautiful yellow and red livery that I wish they would bring back. In 1964, with the introduction of the Shinkansen in Japan, the concept of high-speed rail was introduced to the world. And in Europe, France followed suit, introducing their TGV high-speed trains in 1981. The French high-speed rail network continued to expand domestically and internationally. And so in 1996, the Thalys was introduced. Now, just by looking at it, you can tell that this is a derivative of the TGV. In 1997, they began to use the dedicated high-speed line built between the French border and Brussels. But north of Brussels, the Thalys exclusively used conventional tracks. The Netherlands didn't start construction on a high-speed line until 2000. Initially, it was supposed to open in 2007, but some delays meant that it did not open until 2009, from which point the Thalys could operate at 300 kilometers per hour in all three countries. NS, the Dutch railways, wanted to run their own service on the line as well. So they introduced the Vira, a high-speed train running from Amsterdam to Brussels that they would operate jointly with the Belgian railways, at speeds of up to 250 kilometers per hour. When the Vira was introduced, some people were unhappy because the Thalys had high fares, and now the Vira had high fares too. There was no more low-cost option to travel to Brussels. Well, they got what they wanted, I think, because the Vira did not last very long. The Italian-built V250 train sets entered service in December 2012 and left service in January 2013. They were of very poor quality. They were constantly breaking down, the floors even dislocated from the trains at speed. It was a mess. I don't know if it really made the news in other countries, but in the Netherlands, this was on the front page for weeks. It was one of the biggest political scandals, at least in my lifetime. Heads rolled, careers were ended, and NS had to figure out something else. So the Vira service was shortened to just a domestic Dutch service between Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and Breda, using locomotives and intercity coaches dating back to the 1980s. This was far from an ideal situation because they could only go half the speed of what the high-speed line was designed for and were very heavy, so were causing damage to the tracks. The Vira brand name was now permanently tainted, so NS needed a rebrand, which is why they came up with the new name Intercity Direct. In 2013, they also had to bring back the traditional Benelux train to provide international service, initially just to The Hague and eventually extended back to Amsterdam. At that point, NS promised passengers that at some point the train service between Amsterdam and Brussels would once again run on the high-speed line, a promise that they sort of fulfilled in 2018, when the Benelux train was rebranded as part of the Intercity Direct service and started running on the high-speed line from Amsterdam to Belgium. However, it made a detour stopping in Breda, stopping at the Brussels airport, and made a lot of local stops in Belgium. So this high-speed service was actually slower than the conventional Benelux train had been just 10 years earlier, which is pretty embarrassing. At the same time, however, they ordered a brand new fleet of 200 km per hour electric multiple units from Alstom. This became known as the Intercity New Generation program. While the majority of this new fleet was meant for domestic, intercity, and intercity direct services, a few of the train sets were built with the ability to run in Belgium, where they use different voltage and train control systems. Finally, in December 2024, these train sets entered service on the Eurocity Direct route. And that's the train we are on now. Now, the Eurocity Direct service has several advantages over the previous Amsterdam to Brussels trains. First of all, its top speed is 200 kilometers per hour, which is slower than the initial 250 that the Vira was supposed to have, but on distances this short, the difference is negligible. More importantly, it doesn't make any of the detours that the old Benelux trains did. It makes the same stops as the premium high-speed services, but for lower fares. However, to compensate the passengers that are now losing their direct connection, the Belgian railways introduced their own Eurocity service. This one still stops at Brussels Airport, it still stops in Breda, and it terminates in Rotterdam, essentially doubling the frequency of train service between Brussels and Rotterdam. Now, I've touched on it before, but one of the main advantages of the Eurocity and the Eurocity Direct is that they offer lower fares compared to the premium high-speed services. I booked this ticket on the NS International app a few weeks before departure. The tickets were 20 euros in second class and 30 in first. Pretty fair, I think, given the distance that we're traveling. Anyway, as a passenger, you barely notice that at this point, we've crossed the border. Where are we?
België. New state acquired. Country.
That's right, we have crossed the border into Belgium. We'll be on the high-speed line until Antwerp, which is just another 20 minutes away or so. Now we're in Belgium, all there is to do is check out the toilet. Just kidding. So here it is, let's open the door. Unfortunately, the sink on this new train wasn't working. Now, toilets on NS trains in recent years have had incredibly extravagant artwork plastered all over the walls. Now, I believe that it is a graffiti deterrent, but as you can see, an anarchist isn't going to let the rules of psychology stop them. So after using the toilet, I briefly checked out second class. They've got these lounge benches, which are really an NS favorite. They've put them in every new and refurbished train for years. Did you know that in Belgium and in France, trains run on the left-hand side, even though you drive on the right-hand side? In the Netherlands, trains run on the right. But on the high-speed line, they normally run on the left so that they don't have to switch sides once they cross the border into Belgium. How's that for a fun piece of trivia? You know, one thing that I took for granted about European trains until I moved to the US is how smooth and quiet the ride can be. I mean, I love a trip on the Northeast Regional, but every time I ride one after a trip to Europe, I'm like, wow, this is so bumpy and noisy. Like the Eurocity Direct travels at the same speed and the experience is wildly different. Barely notice a thing. Anyway, a little bit north of Antwerp, we leave the high-speed line, and for the rest of our journey, we'll be running on conventional tracks. In a matter of minutes, we've arrived at the central station to this important Belgian harbor city, Antwerpen Centraal. Of course, the speed increases of going 200 kilometers per hour and skipping so many stations are kind of undone when you just wait at Antwerpen Centraal for 10 minutes. But now we arrive at a basement level platform that was opened in 2007, giving trains an easy way to travel from north to south through Antwerp. While this is great for our runtime, unfortunately it means we don't get a view of the upper levels of Antwerpen Centraal, which really is one of the most beautiful stations in the world, often described as a railway cathedral. From Antwerp to Brussels, it's about another 40 kilometers. There are no high-speed tracks from here on out, but that's not really a problem. We will still reach Brussels in about half an hour. Along the way, we can enjoy the stream of trains passing by us on one of Belgium's busiest railway lines. To be honest, of course I'm disappointed that things happened the way they did. It was a waste of valuable money and time, but the end result that we have now, I think, is the best possible outcome, maybe even better than the Vira. Between the Eurocity, the Eurocity Direct, and Eurostar, service between the Netherlands and Belgium is more frequent than ever before, and there are more options than ever before. It's no longer a trade-off between price and speed. And on a different note, I'm also glad that we decided to break up our trip this morning. Taking the direct high-speed train from Rotterdam to Paris would definitely have been more convenient, but that train would have been very crowded. Boarding the Eurocity Direct in the morning and getting to wake up slowly in a quiet train car as the sun was rising, I think it was the perfect start to our day. Anyway, we're already entering the Brussels metropolitan area. Our train runs down the main north-south corridor, serving the Belgian capital. Interestingly, the Eurocity Direct does not stop at the major stations of Brussels North or Central. Those stations are only served by the Eurocity. It's a fascinating feature of the Brussels rail system that high-speed and international train services generally avoid some of the most important stations here. It's something that I'm thinking about making a video on in the future. We have arrived in Brussels. It's 8:09 in the morning and we have arrived at Brussels uit Midi, Brussels South Station. Time to admire this Alstom ICNG train a little bit more. I know that opinions are split on the new NS livery. My position is that while the old scheme is iconic, this new livery suits these new trains incredibly well.
That is a very nice train. We had to wait a long time for it, but it's worth it.
On the track next to us, a brand new Belgian M7 double-deck train has pulled up. It's cool. We've got the newest Dutch train and the newest Belgian train posing next to each other on the same platform. This kind of describes the Brussels South dilemma. As a passenger, it is far from my favorite station. Every time I'm here, I am frustrated by the difficult navigation and just overall drab design. But as a train fan, the platforms are basically paradise. Besides the near-constant flow of domestic trains, you have international sleeper trains, the French TGV, Eurostar to Paris and London, German ICEs. Few stations in Europe can boast this much variety. Anyway, that's all for today. Join us next week as we take Eurostar from Brussels to Paris, traveling at 300 kilometers per hour. Become a channel member or join us on Patreon for a full director's cut of both services combined into one video. Thank you so much for watching today. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome, and we'll see you next time.